I'm really glad you're here. And if you could, turn to the person next to you and say, I'm so glad you're here. And mean it. I was recently getting on an airplane, and I had raced. I have 2 kids, a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old, so like leaving a house is a miracle. And I was trying to get to the plane, and it was one of those situations like out of a movie where I just had to make it. I made it through security, and I'm running down the gate, and I'm getting there, and I got there, and they're about to close the door, and the person takes my ticket, and she goes, "You can make it, honey. You're the last one on the plane." And I'm like, "I can do this." And then I get on the plane, and I'm walking down the aisle, and I'm out of breath, and I'm kind of like, and then I get to my seat, and I look, and then the person that's at my row, I'm like, "Oh, I'm here. This is my seat." And the person looks at me and says, "I was hoping you wouldn't show up." No, like I know what they meant. I've flown before. I know like that means, I was hoping to stretch out. I was hoping to like take my shoes off or whatever. And then you showed up and ruined all of my plans. It's essentially, and I sat there the whole flight thinking, that is literally the meanest bundle of words you could say to a human being. I was actively hoping your presence wouldn't happen. I was actively hoping you would not exist, that you would not show up right here. And so I punched him. No, I went to therapy. I really thought about that. And so more and more, I've been trying to say to people, I'm glad you're here, and mean it. And maybe you could say that more to the people around you, because this is where we are. And I'm glad that we're here. I drew a smiley face on that earth so that you would know that the earth is glad we're here too. And on this place that we live, there's 7.4 billion humans. That's a lot of people. And of that number, there's like 1.8 billion of them are younger than 15. There's nearly 3 billion people in the world under the age of 20. And some people see that number and go, oh no, there's more of them. But not you and not me, because we see that number and we say, there's hope. There's possibility. I'm glad you're here. We need you. And so a lot of my work is around young people, around kids, around reminding kids how happy we are that they're here and that we can't have them go about business as usual, that it's time to be unusual. And I spend a lot of time creating stories that are for kids and for former kids. And so tonight, I want to share with you a few things that I hope can inspire you and remind you of the magic that it is to just be here. This is me. When I was a kid, I spent a lot of time in my room with a video camera that I got for Christmas, and I made movies. Most of them were just me writing poetry about girls who wouldn't call me back. And I'm really glad that YouTube did not exist yet, because there would be a library of shame. And instead, years later, I would be able to create things on YouTube. But at that time, I was a kid with great legs and wore bowling shoes to cut the grass. I grew up in a small town in West Tennessee on a farm. And Easter's coming up this weekend, so we dug up an old Easter picture. This is me with an Easter egg, and apparently someone I murdered. For an Easter egg. Then years later, this is a photo of me. This is a photo of Beyonce finding me completely charming. And I'm really proud of this picture, and I always find some excuse to put it in somewhere. I've created some videos on YouTube about a kid president, and it was my little brother-in-law, and the whole idea was, what if we stopped and listened to a kid? Like, what if we just could pause for maybe 2 minutes and just look at the world through the eyes of a kid? And it led to some wild places, including being in the same room with Beyonce. Like, what was so wild is after we did a video with Beyonce, Queen Bey, we got a message, and it was a weird phone number. I answer it, and they said, hey, this is the United Nations. I'm like, oh, of course. and they said, hey, just a quick question. How'd you get in touch with Beyonce? And I'm like, what? Did you think that I have her number? We're going to give that out? So I explained to them, and I'll tell you, this is how we got in touch with Beyonce. I went to Beyonce.com, her website, and I got some chicken nuggets that were shaped like dinosaurs, and my little brother-in-law acted out what would happen if he met her. And so he's going like, hey there, Beyonce, I'm a T-Rex. Hey, boy, what's up? And then we sent it, and miraculously she said, hey, yeah, let's do a video. But in this moment, we filmed this is this really great moment. She's won awards. She's married to Jay-Z. She's this amazing woman. And right after we finished filming, she then looks at me, this pasty, weird man from a small town in Tennessee, and goes, was that okay? Can I do that again? And I'm like looking, I go, you talking to me? Like, I can't eat with a fork. Like, yeah, that was fine. You're Beyonce. And the same thing happened in the Oval Office with President Barack Obama. We got to go, we're in his office. I touched the desk. I picked up the phone, and he said, put that down. And we're in there. And right after we finished filming, he then said, was that okay? I could do it again. And I'm like, you're the president. Yeah, that was amazing. And I found over and over and over and over that maybe part of my job in these situations was not to go, I'm amazing, and not to tell them you're amazing. It's just simply remind them who they are, that you're okay. And whether it's in a fourth grade classroom or in the Oval Office, that my job is just to look at the person in there and say, yeah, you're okay. You're Beyonce. Yeah. And so tonight, one of the things I want to do is just look at all of you and tell you, you're Beyonce. Don't look at me. Don't look at anything else. I want you to know that you already are a wonderful, marvelous spark of light. That you have a divine spark. And one of the things, regardless, and that was so freeing to know that whether somebody's won an award, been on the cover of a magazine, or just lived down the street from us, that we're all just human beings who want to be loved. And so I started graffitiing my newspaper every single Sunday. I'd take the New York Times, and just no matter the story, I found that it was applicable. You could just take any story and you just say, oh, that's just a human being who wants to be loved. It's Beyonce, it's Jay-Z, it's politicians on either side, and it's even me. And I looked at the mirror and realized I'm just a human being who wants to be loved. That internet troll that keeps bugging me, it's just a human being who wants to be loved. My neighbor next door who really wants me to cut that tree down, just a human being who wants to be loved. My screaming toddler, she's just a human being that wants to be loved. Every single one of you, all of us. That reminder of humanity seems really simple, but it's kind of interesting because if you look in the Bible over and over and over again, it's like they constantly had to keep reminding them, hey, those other people matter too. Hey, look, I know you just want to do your own thing, but you need each other. Over and over and over, there are these reminders that listen, you matter, but we need every single one of you to make a giant constellation that paints a bigger picture than any of us can do alone. That one of the great reminders is encourage each other, build each other up, just as in fact you are doing. And so many great things are already happening right here, right now in this community, just simply because you're living that out already. You're already realizing that you're just a human being who needs to be loved, and so is the person next to you, and we're gonna live that out. And we're gonna just be a bunch of joy rebels. We are gonna live life not just in the way we've always been told, but we are gonna joyfully rebel against that and do something new. That's why tonight I want to call this, Here Come the Joy Rebels. Because I want to remind us all who we are. Because there's some rebellions that are fueled by anger. And they're mad about like what's happening and the way things are. And there's some rebellions that are fueled in that way where they're violent and it's people throwing tea in bodies of water, shooting a Death Star or what have you. But it's your rebellion. I'm talking tonight to a room full of people who have a joyful vision for the way things could be. And you could rebel against what is and create that. I'm going to share with you tonight a story in 3 parts that is inspired by my daughter. When she was born, the doctor handed her to me, expecting me to take care of her, and I can barely keep a plant alive. It's like a dog trying to figure out a Rubik's Cube. The hands are to me. And I looked down at her, and do you know what she did? She laughed, which was a good response. Now, years later, I would tell the story to people, I hope my daughter, and the first time she laughed, and one older lady said, that was gas, baby. But I've found that spirit, that exuberance, that inner joy, it's still there. She's 4 now, and it hasn't gone away. This is a story that is about that, about us, about joyfully rebelling, the incredible floating girl. So may I share with you a story? It's wild and it's true. I'm going to share with you a story about a girl. Some say she flew. It didn't really make the papers. In fact, they tried to keep it from their neighbors, afraid that some people might call them fakers, but I promise you it was true. She was just a few months old as her father put her to bed, and laughing up she went and on the ceiling hit her head. He found a way to bring her down, but was still in disbelief. He tried to tell his wife, but she said, "Dear, you need some sleep." It happened again, and the father said, "See, every time I come near the girl, she loses her gravity." Smiling wide, laughing loud, up, up, up she would go, and there he'd be, terrified, shaking down below. I'll catch you, he would cry. "Please get down here," he would cry. But she only floated higher when her father would come by. Now, floating runs in the family, floating runs in many families, as far back as you can go. Floating runs in all families, but it's not something you can really know. You see, floating is very strange, and I'm sad here to admit that floating is an ability we all grow up and soon forget. I saw this on a laundromat. I thought it was really brilliant and fitting that growing up, being an adult, is like folding a fitted sheet. It seems to sort of embody that spirit of what it means to be a grown-up. You have this idea when you're a kid, I'm going to grow up and I'm going to eat candy all day and watch TV and do whatever. And then you grow up and it's like folding a fitted sheet. It's difficult, it's impossible, and sometimes ends in blood and tears. And this captures it. Beverly Cleary, the children's author, she just recently turned 170. And an interviewer asked her, "How did you do it? How'd you get so old?" That's a question that they ask. And this was her response: "I didn't do it on purpose." I thought that would be awesome on a cake. I didn't do it on purpose. And I wonder if any of us do, if any of us really grow and mature on purpose. It just sort of happens and we're here and we're like, "Oh no, I did it. I'm grown up. They gave me the keys to the car. They gave me this baby. I have a job. Don't they know they made a mistake?" Because some of us look at life and we're like, "This is me. I'm just trying to eat this pizza and it's impossible." And then other people, they're like the Beyonce thing. They're just like, "You want some pizza? Here it is." It's just like, pull it up from under your head. I feel like the kid trying to eat the pizza. And so when I started making this web series, and suddenly, we're on the news, and all over the world, we're now over 300 million views on these videos that we've done and seen in every single continent, and still, we're going, how in the world did I get to do this? We created a video called A Pep Talk from Kid President to You, and it was like our 15th video together. My little brother-in-law, I'm out on a football field with him, and it goes online on a Thursday, and then by that Sunday it had 1 million views, and then by that next week it had 8 million, and we're on the Today Show and CNN and Al Jazeera News and other people that are just saying words that I don't understand, and we just smiled and went, yeah! And then we were thrown on this train, this cyclone, this avalanche of attention, and we're, as a family, had to suddenly go, oh no, like, people are actually paying attention. What's the story we actually want them to hear? What's the story we actually want to tell? What do we actually want to do? This is a glimpse of the adventure we went on.
Was magical.
Hurry, Kid President.
I weigh 61 pounds, that's why I'm so heavy. The world would be more awesome if
every interview was as good as this one with Kid President.
What's this called?
The pencil sharpener.
I like it.
Treat everybody like it's a birthday. Nice, people. You got air coming through your nose. You got heartbeat. That means it's time to do something. Science. You hear? You take up space, you matter. Am I getting everybody? Am I getting everybody? What do you think, Nick Columbus?
Fantastic.
Let's change the future. Create something that will make the world awesome.
Yeah. So what was really fun is from the age of like fourth grade, I had been drawing things and telling stories and hoping that one day that I'd have the chance to be able to share them. And then when it started to happen, I wanted to quit. I didn't know exactly how to handle it. I wasn't sure how to do this because so many things could be misunderstood. And my family was the one that surrounded me to remind me why we even started this. And it was that my love of being with my little brother-in-law. We live across the street from each other, and that was what sparked us even making anything together. And so keeping that front and center, and then just simply the love of being with and around children. And so joyfully rebelling against childishness to embrace childlikeness became the objective. Becoming more like a child. When we ended the Kid President series, I was not sure exactly what to do next, like how I would move forward. And so I was being asked to visit classrooms. So I started interviewing 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders in every single state and on every single continent. And I'd spend time with these 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders, and I know that this picture makes me look like I'm some sort of psycho, like a conspiracy theorist. But actually, it was every single state we found remarkable stories of children and people who care for children. And it was deeply inspired by them. A school for the blind, where a woman was helping them learn to paint and was learning to see the world through the way that they view things. I met one teacher who started a pen pal program where her students were learning to write and share what they cared about. Lots of different students all over. And so I started finding myself living in this in-between two planets, a planet that was full of youthful optimism and another planet that was sort of this grown-up cynicism, a place that I would sometimes visit. I would find myself visiting each planet. But then when I was torn between that, I started wondering, is there some way to take this world that wants to be so childish and for us to exist in a more childlike way? I think it's interesting that Jesus spent so much time reminding us that we were God's beloved children and that he wanted to be with children, and this beautiful idea that maybe if we saw each other as all God's children, becoming more childlike. But we forget what that could look like. There's 4.3 births every single second, and when that happens, a lot of people feel the exact same thing I felt, which is, I'm not good at personing. Me no people good. Me no human. I don't know how to take care of this little person. I'm not prepared to do this. And yet at the same time, we need each other so much. And so, even this is an amazing writer and environmentalist, Rachel Carson, wrote that if a child is to keep alive his inborn sense of wonder, he needs the companionship of at least one adult who can share it, rediscovering with him the joy, excitement, and mystery of the world we live in. And Rachel Carson knew that because she had a mentor. She had somebody who was right alongside her who said, you have a beautiful mind and a way of seeing the world. You could take these and write. And so she helped her, and that was, this was her mentor, Mary Scott Skinker. There's lots of people you could go through, so many people like Maya Angelou who had been through such trauma that she didn't speak, and it was a next door neighbor who helped her fall in love with poetry and find her voice. Tom Brokaw is interesting because in lots of interviews over and over and over, even unprompted, he wants to talk about his fourth grade teacher, Mrs. Morrow, who at a time when he was just doing what normal kids do and just showing up to class, she told him, you're better than this, Tom. And he said, okay. And then he's like, I remembered that forever. And he wants to live up to what she wanted. Even Oprah, this is an episode, a moment where her staff surprised her with her elementary school teacher. And Oprah cried the whole time, over and over and over. And you know what's really great is the teacher didn't remember Oprah. That seems sort of sad, but you think about it. This teacher, she gets called to be on this huge show, and the teacher, this person who impacts so many people, and there's a moment in the episode where Oprah goes, what was I like? And the teacher goes, I don't really remember. To have lived in such a way where she showed up and made that impact. I wonder how many of those people there are for each of you, for each of us. There's a sign that my wife put up in our workshop because it's been the anthem, it's been the driving force, and it says, be who you needed when you were younger. And that has been what's guided every single thing we've done, from camp programs to creating curriculum for schools to web series to books. This whole idea of what did we need when we were younger. And if we all could live in a way where we reflected on what maybe we had or didn't have and provided that for those around us, we live in a completely different and brighter world. I put out a question online, a prompt, and it was, I am blank because you were blank. So basically, I am this now because you showed up in this way. And people from all over began to fill that out and answer it. People in business, people in all over. This guy says, I'm not afraid because you were willing to channel my energy to the stage. I'm stronger because you were everything I didn't know I needed. This guy's an art teacher. I'm a guy who colors for a living, is what he says. Oh, because he had a teacher, someone who helped him. This is a group of even younger kids who, in their school, were already realizing that I am becoming something because you were there. I was blown away one day when I received this image, an entire college campus, all reflecting on that idea. If we could all remember this giant patchwork quilt we're part of, that your story impacts the person next to you's story. There's a phrase we use a lot where we say, that made my day. You made my day. And if we realize that we all have the ingredients, the supplies we need to make each other's days, to actually craft and create the days for the people around us, One of the people in that crowd actually thought about that question. He was a professor, an older professor. And he thought about that question, who he needed, and he realized he didn't even hold up the sign because he was so upset because the person was a teacher he'd had when he was younger. So he realized that it was this teacher. It was his teacher. He had moved around for years, and it was his 5th grade teacher. It had been like decades. And so he thought, well, maybe, I don't even know if she's alive now. I don't know like if I could find her. He went on a quest on Facebook to try to find her. And he lived in Arkansas. She was over in New England. And he actually found her and set up a meeting. And he went on a road trip with his grandkids. And they met at a library where she was now working as a librarian. And one of the things he talked about the whole way there with his grandkids was that he didn't realize he had a learning disability until he was in that class. And the teacher realized that he was incredibly intelligent, but that he was an auditory learner, that he was having trouble reading, and that he was wrestling with dyslexia. And figuring that out in that class was huge for him. And his teacher reading aloud the tests so that he could actually pass. She even told him, "You're a great writer." So he made the drive. And they met at a library, and it made their newspaper. And what I thought just was absolutely beautiful is their time ended with her pulling a book off the shelf and reading to his grandkids. All coming full circle. Part 2. The Incredible Floating Girl, Part 2. Though nerve-wracking for her father, it was beautiful to see a graceful, smiling girl gliding free as a girl could be. Quiet places were discovered where she could go and fly outside. Her father would watch her from down below with these feelings of great pride. But as the girl grew older, the pressure, it grew too. And slowly something happened. Less and less it was she flew. Little by little and day by day, the whole problem of floating had floated away. For so many years, this had been such a stress, but now no more worrying, for now she floated less. By end of elementary school, the floating completely ceased. By the end of junior high, they felt it all just been a dream. High school, college ended, and the daughter moved far away to take a job and to grow up, like many hoped she'd do one day. Now, none of the family could remember or say exactly what had happened. Had the floating they'd known been real or something they'd all imagined? But every now and then, be it something she saw or felt or heard, the daughter's heart would skip a beat when she looked up and saw a bird. Why these things would happen, she thought it just a fluke. But somewhere not too far away, her father would feel it too. There's this quote from Thoreau that I love, that the youth gets together as materials to build a bridge to the moon, or perchance a palace or temple on the earth, and at length the middle-aged man concludes to build a woodshed with them. The whole idea that like a kid sees wood, youth want to build a moon bridge, old dudes, woodshed. Like, we go from this whole idea of living with such grand imagination and possibilities to, let's build a shed. And this is true. There's something that happens to us, and it's actually, there's this whole thing where we could joyfully rebel against growing up like normal. You could all be like Peter Pan, right? Peter Pan, the kid who never grew up. And yet, I think that that's the wrong kind of rebellion against growth. And maybe the real hero of the story should be, we should stop telling the story of Peter Pan, the boy who grew up, and instead tell a story of Wendy, the girl who grew up. And this story of a girl who experienced such adventure and magic and wonder that she carried it with her the rest of her life. If you could joyfully rebel against everything you've been told about what it means to grow, and grow in the way that Christ wants us to grow, which is a growth that invites everybody around you to grow, a growth that where every single place you go, people are strengthened. This is a graph of schools and the loss of student enthusiasm for school by grade level. You can see it starts off in kindergarten and then a major dip, ninth grade. Any ninth graders, bless you. This moment. You can also take this graph and put over jobs, put over parenting, put over any sort of situation you might find yourself in where that enthusiasm dips, where it becomes harder and harder. We forget why we are where we are. For me, I found this place where all these things I ever dreamed were starting to happen, and I wasn't sure why I still wanted to do it. I carried a backpack with me for way too long. A backpack I didn't know that when you became an adult, you could check it at the door. There's lots of things that I had in it that were weighing me down: a security blanket, self-doubt, stuff I believed about who I am, false beliefs about adulthood, pain, things people did to me, things people said to me, things I thought people said about me, things nobody ever said about me, but I wish they would, desire for approval. We carry these things around, not realizing that a big part of growth is shedding something. In all of the noise, we can find beauty. I have been finding that when I stopped listening to everything else and started listening to kids, I tuned into a transmission of hope. Because I heard from young people possibility. I was reminded of what it meant to look at the world with eyes filled with wonder. You hit a point where you start seeing mud puddles and you think, okay, I'm going to dodge it. But when you're a kid, you just jump right in. It's not a problem, it's an opportunity. I've been thinking a whole lot about this needing each other thing, this encouraging each other into something more. When we got to meet with Charles Schultz's family, Charles Schultz created Peanuts, Charlie Brown, Snoopy. I got to meet and go to his office. It's been my dream. I loved Peanuts. I loved the comic strips. And there we were in his office at his desk where he drew Peanuts for decades. And I'm there looking at these comic strips. And his son is who Pigpen was based after, if you want an idea. And he's like a dirt bike guy, and he starts talking about his dad, and he's talking about, yeah, my dad sat at this desk, and he drew Peanuts for years, and I used to come in here, and I'd be all dirty, and he'd say, get out of here, boy, and he was a loving dad, though. That was just one story. But he told us, he said, a lot of people have this idea that my dad was Charlie Brown. And then some people think, oh, no, he wasn't sad all the time. He was probably more like Snoopy. And he says, but that's not right either. He wasn't like one or the other. He said, actually, if you want to know who my dad was, you have to look at Schroeder, who sat at his piano and did his art. You also have to look at Lucy, who could kind of be bossy sometimes. You have to look at Linus and his blanket and his philosophical ways of seeing the world, and Charlie Brown and Snoopy. So if you want to know who my dad was, you got to look at every single one of the kids. I think the same for us. If you want to know who our Father is, we've got to look at every single one of his kids. That somehow you, the person sitting here right now, you create for us a picture of who God is. But in all the noise, sometimes that beauty gets hidden. And I've found that so many things in my life, I've tried to hide those very things, that sacred weirdness that is inside me, that is a divine imprint of who God is and what he looks like, smells like, sounds like, and I've hidden it with so many other things. What if an entire community of people said, we're going to look our part. We're going to shine our part of who we are right here in the universe, that divine spark, your little stars beyond your understanding and knowing, painting a constellation in the sky for everybody to see, not you, but the one who made you. All of us. When I start seeing kids work together too, I start seeing this picture. This is a group of kids in California that just a few months ago I spent some time with, and I gave them blank sheets of paper. And I asked them, okay, you've got this blank sheet of paper, make it the like craziest playground you could ever dream up, like the happiest place on earth. So they drew giant slides and all sorts of whirligig things that were flowers that came to life. And they had these amazing ideas. And I told them, look what you can dream up together. And they did these blueprints. What they didn't know is that I left the next day and we went to this spot here. This building is a rehabilitation center for men and women who have been living on the streets, but they have a family and they're trying to transition from homelessness to having a life that is productive with their family, the kind of life they've dreamed of. And there's over 200 kids that live here. And that's nothing. There's just land there. So we said, could we build a playground? And they said, yeah. And then they said, who's going to design it? And I said, a bunch of third graders. And we got a team of volunteers who came together. And reality shows are really fun to watch. They're terrible to live in because this was not always fun. But in 2 days, we turned it around and actually brought this land here into being what kids had dreamed up. And then we pulled the bus up, and the kids went bonkers. They ran out, and they got to see their dreams brought to life. You can see side by side, these kids are screaming. You can see that there's this play area. We added birds. They liked birds, so there's little birds everywhere. You can see here where we took some things they had made with pipe cleaners and built them right here. This little treehouse, the swing, a climbing wall. There's a bench that looks like the Millennium Falcon that's really cool. There's a secret little area that's a dinosaur park. That's a park within the park. That's like a tiny Jurassic Park. There it is. The kids were thrilled about seeing their dream brought to life. And the whole big thing was, what if every kid knew that their voice mattered, that their heart mattered, the little ideas they have in their heads were so valuable that we're going to listen to them and we're going to collaborate together and build something really beautiful. There's a moment in Scripture where there's this big problem where there's lots of people that need to be fed, and Jesus is like, what do you got? And then there's a kid, and there's a collaboration. And there's someone who says, what you have is not much, but it's more than enough, and it's plenty, and we're going to make something really beautiful. That kid's probably going, I don't know, I'm just a kid. I just got loaves and bread. And Jesus is like, no, you are my child. You are okay. Part 3. Oh, man. The Incredible Floating Girl, Part 3. I think. Yeah, it is. All right. So, life moved along as life is known to do. So much had been forgotten, so much they all once knew, but you're never too distant, no, you're never too far to come back and remember who you really, truly are. Her father was stuck in traffic to make his way through see her that very day. He rushed best he could, going over every speed limit because his grandson would be arriving precisely any minute. Though time had divided them, today there was joy. Today the daughter gave birth to a beautiful baby boy. She looked at her baby and did so lovingly, and yet saw something she never dreamed she'd see. How in the world? I could never think it. A baby floating happily with a floating baby blanket? The daughter, a new mother, shaking in disbelief. In that moment, she remembered everything. She remembered the floating and the soaring and the flying. She remembered the lightness and the laughing, the stopping and the crying. She remembered the thrill of soaring over the water. Most of all, she remembered her father. It was there in that instant. It was there that she knew him. It was him. He's the reason she flew. Maybe a magical connection or some other surprise, but something in his presence always helped her to rise. She remembered him standing with eyes full of care. Never did she fly unless he was there. Here she remembered all the magic she once knew. standing like her father with a child floating too. Well, the door slowly opened. And friends, I'm telling you as it did, the daughter looked to see her father, and he looked to see her slippers slowly lift. May we all have days to remember the magic we've once known and never forget we need each other because no person flies alone. Should your spark begin to fade because of time or stress or fear, you'll need reminding of your flying and the reason you are here, to fly and help each other fly. It's wild and it is true, but to fly and help each other fly, it's what we're here to do. There's a quote from Da Vinci that says that once you've tasted flight, you'll forever walk the earth with your eyes turned skyward, for there you have been, and there you will always long to return. That even in all the noise, if you've tasted beauty, if you've seen it, if you've felt it, you will always long for it again. You will always want to return to it. May it never drown out. May you never forget what it is that makes all of us rise. We're here to fly and help each other fly closer to the one who made us. I always spent my life jealous of birds, but now I know instead of wings, God gave us love and words. There's we think about all the people that raise us up, that help us become who we are, and that sometimes we can point each other to that reason, that purpose for living. One story that's really interesting to me is Mozart. And Mozart is someone who had this beautiful talent, this amazing ability to unleash beauty with music. And he actually had a hero. It was this hero that was a musician named Haydn. And Haydn was someone that he looked up to so much that he wanted his music to sound just like Haydn's. And as a teenager, he wrote a piece of music, and people heard it and said, is that piece by Haydn? And Mozart's sitting there going, no, it's me. I wrote this, because he wanted to sound like his hero. There's a moment where even Mozart's father, this is a piece that he wrote, and it was a new piece. Mozart's father and Haydn had said we're in the same place hearing it for one of the first times in the debuts. And as the music played, someone said, Mozart's father said, this sort of sounds like one of your pieces. And Haydn said, no, it sounds a little bit like the angels. Something new, something different. He's risen above what we even wanted. I don't know who it was for you or what it is for you that reminds you of what it means to be here, that beauty that you have that you can unleash in the world. But may you joyfully rebel against everything else that is not divine and go straight towards the beauty of what we were created to be here for. Because when you do that, the world will not be able to look away. When we encourage each other in that way, there's the way things are, the way things could be. There's also a you, and there's also a me. And this community needs a group of people to be unusual. A group of people who can look at the way things are and the way things could be and say, we are going to bring beauty into this. We are going to collaborate with each other, but most of all with the one who created us. And in that, there will be something new. Beautiful music will be released. I want to end with this simple little reminder that I started sharing with my kids. And I even did this at camp with a group of kids, and we got chalk. And I got it on the ground, and we just started to draw. And this is the story. So when we all are born, we begin by drawing a circle on the ground, along each shoe, a safe little circle for no one but you. And in this circle, you just say, it's for me. I want for me and mine, and I just want it, it's for me. But as time passes, your eyes open, and you see others that you care for. And so then you ask yourself, well, what's this circle really there for? So, in the circle all around you, everywhere that you go, there's a difference you can make and a love that you can show. So you draw the circle wider to let a few more inside. The circle could have one person, a circle for only you yourself, but that'd be like a library with just one book on the shelf. So now draw a bigger circle for friends and family with you to share. Now you'll see what can happen in a circle full of care. But standing in this happy circle, with you and your loved ones now all in it, what about all the other people, the ones who couldn't fit? Because there's a circle all around us everywhere that we go. It's the difference we can make. It's the love that we can show. And so you stretch and get the marker out, and you draw the circle wide and let a few more people you know that they're welcome inside. It doesn't mean the circle's easy. It gets harder the more we share. But wonderful things can happen when love is known and felt everywhere. But there's still so many outside the circle. They're different in all they do. Though the feeling is slightly uncomfortable, we know a bigger circle must do. So let's create bigger circles all around us for all the rest of our days. Let our caring ripple out in a million different ways. In the circles all around us, everywhere that we go, there's a difference we can make, a love that we can show. As our circles all get wider, as they shift on every side, never forget where the love came from you first found inside. That love. May that love be a spark for you every single day, today and every day. And may today have been a reminder of why you're here, why I'm here, why we're all here. I hope that it won't be like a story of like a bunch of birds who showed up to church and the bird minister said, "You can fly," and then all the birds walked home. I hope it's not that way. But instead, may this be a group of not just people who are followers of Christ. It is true followers of Christ who aren't just in name. Don't just say, yeah, I go to this church, but instead, may you be a joyful rebellion. May you love and live and lift each other up by lifting his name up. Sometimes you can forget. And why I say it's a joyful rebellion is because joy does something that lifts us in places we never, ever dreamed. It brings people together. It confuses people. I found when I was I got invited to the White House Correspondents' Dinner because they made a mistake. And I wore a tuxedo, and I was feeling really good about myself. I thought, I'm somebody. I'm a big deal. And I walked in the room, and I tripped. Like, mega trip, flew through the air, landed on my face, squealed. Someone said, "Is B. Arthur okay?" Like, it was just really terrible. I land, and then I get right back up, and I'm thinking, okay, nobody saw it. I'm still cool. I'm big and important. I'm wearing a tux. But my little brother-in-law, age 10 at that time, pointed and laughed. Now, you know, like the kind of laugh that little kids do and they just like can't stop laughing? Because this is a fancy event. And I had told him the whole time, this is a fancy event. We're gonna be like gentlemen, and you're gonna dress up, and we have to like behave. And then he's just like, I'm not supposed to laugh, but I can't stop laughing. And it's bubbling up out of him. And it's so loud and long that he's laughing that I had time to take video of it. This is him.
Why are you laughing at me? Not funny.
It went on even more, and then like people started coming up going, what's so funny? And like, let's don't talk about that. And they started talking. Then we're in this circle of people who are all also laughing. And Jeff Goldblum comes up, and he's like, what's so funny? Oh, I fell down one time on a red carpet, starts telling a story. Barbara Walters comes up, all of these people. And we're in this circle of just people that should not be together, but are together. And we're all laughing because I fell down. It's not about how amazing I am, it's about I fell down. And we're laughing so hard that other people in the room are going, what is that group? What is Jeff Goldblum and Barbara Walters and that pasty man laughing about? Like, what are they doing? And that is the kind of community we can be. That is so full of joy that it's just confusing everybody else. I mean, what is that? What is their deal? It lifts us all up. And we can laugh at each other and remember that we need each other. And we are going to fly and make each other fly. Oh, not again. May you fly and help each other fly. Thank you so much.